I want to thank the Tile and Marble folks for being patient with us on this important discussion.
Morning.
Morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
You want to? Can you share the screen? Are you, Doug? Is that possible?
I'm all set. Right. Brian.
Yeah, how you doing? Morning.
Yeah, Tile and Marble should have the ability to share their screen and bring drawings up.
Are you guys going to bring? I'm sorry, I misunderstood. Are you bringing the drawing up, or am I?
You are.
You are.
All right, let's see if I can figure this out here.
Better you than us.
Yeah, I'm.
There you go.
Are you able to see it?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning. My name is Brian Madigan. I'm here representing Sal Zavaglia. What we have on our docket is a roughly 5,000 square foot warehouse. We're down to 6 parking spaces. I'm not sure how many of you were at the first meeting, but the town engineer asked us to get some feedback from DOT. We are going to submit an expedited permit shortly after this meeting, hopefully. It's a 5,000 square foot warehouse with 2 employees, 1 CAD operator, 1 salesperson. The idea of this warehouse is to stage a lot of the finished product that is going to go to clients. That product is normally shipped by a van-sized vehicle. There are no large tractor trailers, Class C large vehicles entering the property. There will be from time to time a client coming to meet with either a salesperson or the CAD operator. Mostly the CAD operator to discuss their kitchen plans and that sort of thing. Their warehouse will be storing mainly cut product, finished product. All the heavy lifting will continue to be done at the East Syracuse warehouse. As I said, 2 employees, basically 4 trips per day. We went through the DOT trip generation numbers. We looked at the site distances. If you have any other questions about the site plan right now, I'll entertain them, and then I will explain what the DOT has asked us to do.
Just so to refresh our memories here. What's the square footage? And so it's basically done on, are you going to have some sales? I sense that what you just said, that there were some sales. So I'd like to look at if it's 1 per, for the sales area, retail would be, 1 per 150 in spaces, parking. And how much is warehouse there?
Well, this is basically all warehouse.
No sale.
No, this is not
a customer.
No, this is not a retail sales thing. What would
Okay.
happen is from time to time, a customer would come in to meet with the designer to talk about their kitchen plan, their bathroom plan, their floor plan. So there is going to be an office in the existing stone or CMU structure. So there will be an office in there, a little sales desk, and all the utilities right now enter that block building. So we're going to retain that building. The remainder of the building will be warehouse. There will be a second level behind the parapet with some joist rights to hold any kind of dunnage or HVAC. At this point, we're assuming a gas-fired heat system that with all the exhaust vents going out through the back of that parapet. That's one of the reasons we built the front of the building up, is so we don't have any ugly things on the front of the building or on the roof that are visible from the street.
Okay, well, before we can look at that, I just want to make sure that everybody's comfortable with the site plan. So how many parking spots do you have for what employees?
Right now, we have 6 parking spaces. The code says 1 per 2 employees, but we're having 1 per employee, so we want 2 spaces for employees. From time to time, Sal is gonna come, or one of his people are gonna come to the warehouse, but for the most part, there will be 2 employees in the warehouse.
Okay, so the other site plan issue is the DOT. Just say it again, what is the DOT considering?
Okay, what we originally proposed was 2 smaller driveways with access to the drive in front of the building. We sent the plan to DOT for a initial review. I spoke mainly to Jeff Deep. He came back and said we would like to retain the existing curbing. And we want to see a 33-foot radius at the driveways.
Brian, do you mind pulling up the site plan instead of just the cover sheet?
Sorry.
Thank you.
So this area here, the main issue is they want us to maintain the existing driveway width. It's kind of a ridiculous width. It's 45 feet wide.
Yeah.
But they didn't want us replacing any curbing out front. They wanted us to maintain the existing curb cuts. So that precluded us from any spaces in reserve over here. Well,
That seems to be opposite of what they've always recommended. The smaller driveways is a safer.
yeah, they wanted a 33-foot radius and they wanted us to keep the curb the way it is. So
Are those the granite curbing?
yeah. 33-foot radius is a little bit
Excessive.
extreme too. But I think it'll work out. One of the things they did express was they wanted some improvement in the right of way in front of the property line. Originally, we didn't want to touch anything in the right of way. But they did say we would like you to remove any pavement in the right of way, which is mainly between the 2 driveways. And to put some DOT rated stone down and 6 inches of topsoil and plant it with seed. It was kind of a relief to us because I thought they were going to say they wanted us to pave that area with that snow shelf that they normally do. I know Sal wouldn't like that, and I wouldn't like that because it's pretty ugly. So, what we're going to do is we're going to saw cut the pavement right at the property line, about 4 inches inside the property line. We're using pervious pavement throughout. The one spot in reserve is shown as a grassy area right now. And I don't know that we're going to need that in the future. I really never seen more than 4 or 5 vehicles at Sal's warehouse. And that's where he has most of his retail people come in to actually
Just
look.
show it as reserve and they'll have to come back if they want it.
Yeah. So that's the main issue is DOT made us relocate the driveways back to where the original curb cut was. And they want us to plant grass in the right of way.
Okay.
The curb line and the property line.
Any questions from the rest of the board on the site?
My only question, I know that you posed the curb cuts to DOT, but did you actually, like, the one on the right hand side, I could see is a standard 24-foot entry. Did you ask them specifically, say, I don't mind keeping the one on the left at the size that you said, but we want to reduce the one on the right so that we can get potential for future parking, reserve parking in there? And they said no.
The main thing was they want us to maintain the existing curb cuts and have the 33 degree radius, which really wouldn't allow us to get parking in that space without pushing the parking pretty far to the east.
I guess I'm struggling with why the DOT is so resistant to reducing the curb cut, at least the one on the east. On the west, it just seems odd to me.
It's opposite of everything they've required from us.
I can ask.
Would you just say we raised the question and provide either green space or another parking, and we can put it reserve, and it'll still have the the granite curbing, etc. I think it would be safer. They do it for a reason, the 24 feet.
Yeah.
And you have said you're not anticipating trucks, semi-tractor trailers. These are more step vans and smaller.
Yeah. I can broach the issue with them. I guess it's whether or not we want to die on that sword or not.
Well, broach it. That's what we're asking, and just
Yeah.
and then you can get back to us.
I
Okay.
have a follow-up question, Peter. So
Yeah,
maybe this is
please.
directed to Mark. Mark, do you have any examples of when we've approved pervious pavements before in a situation like this? And I only ask that because I have not had a great experience with pervious pavements in situations.
I don't remember when we've done any pervious pavements. You certainly have to have the right conditions in your sub base. You know, it's got to be, you know, a permeable soil underneath, and I would question whether we have that here. I guess.
Yeah.
I was thinking the same thing when you're talking about pervious pavement. I mean, you give it a try, but I would hate to see it fail.
I mean, what I've seen it typically, it's been more located just under the parking stalls and not under the drive aisles.
You know, we've got it, just like Nate's saying, out at Carrier Park, if you go out and look there. But to Nate's point, it's traditionally underneath the parking stalls. The
Yeah.
driveway are normally.
And I agree with you in a sense. I normally don't encourage pervious pavement in heavily traveled parking, you know, areas and driveways, but in this case, there's not going to be a lot of heavy traffic in this on this lot, and I believe the pervious pavement will work fine here.
I guess because it's such a compact site, there's a lot of wheel turning. It has to be in order to navigate this site, and that's usually where I've seen it fail.
Yeah.
And it's a comment at this point. Is it something that is driven by your stormwater management plan? Is that what's driving this?
Well, I think what's driving it mainly is there's
No pun intended.
there's no grade on this site. I mean, it is flat. We started working out a grading plan, and we're working in inches, not in feet. And you know, the absorption, I think the benefit of the absorption far outweighs having to, you know, normally you would have to vacuum one of these things every couple of years. In this case, he could probably go 5 years before he has to do any vacuuming. And I just think the site is so flat. That's the main issue.
Mark Parrish, do you have any thoughts?
Well, I think everybody's brought up good points. Again, I would be concerned about the underlying permeability of the soils. Because it doesn't do you any good to do permeable pavement if it will not, you know, perk into the subgrade.
Would it be necessary to do some perk tests? Some
I don't think it
saturation.
would.
No.
Yeah, I think it would help establish whether this is viable or not. I mean, the rest of the issues that are brought up relative to, you know, the heavier traffic, wheels turning on, et cetera, again, are all valid. You know, but to me, I think the success of the pavement is going to be based on the underlying permeability of the soils.
Yeah, and you know, keep in mind that all of the soils on this site are fill from when the gas station was closed. There's one section to the east of the building that rises to 414. The reason it rises to 414 is because the way they basically piled the soil over a tank that was removed. And the same thing on the other side. So we would be scraping some topsoil off of the site. It's not going to be a native soil. It's going to be whatever they brought in to close the tanks.
Can you do some perk tests? Is that a fair request?
Yeah, we can.
I mean, I don't, you know, I think that Doug and Mark raised important issues, and I think before we approve it, it's gonna end up being a big puddle. We'd like to at least know what you got for a perk test.
And you're matching the existing finished floor elevation?
No, actually, we're raising the building up. The existing finished floor elevation is 413.9, so we're raising the building up about 8 inches.
All right, so why don't you do a perk test to give us a higher level of comfort relative to the,
What do you also take, a quick minute and just kind of update us on elevations and
Yeah.
building aesthetics?
Yep. The originally we had proposed a higher elevation. What we really want to do here today is get a handle on the fact that the site plan may not change too much, so we can get the architect going on the actual building design. At the last meeting, there were some comments that this area was too blank. We added some windows up here. In this area, they would be probably spandrel glass, because if we're putting equipment back there, there wouldn't be any rooms or anything. In this area, they would be clerestory lights to give light to the warehouse. Over here is the loading dock door. It's a 10-foot door. We would revamp the existing entrance. And Sal's got the board with the stone on it. We'd add those specifications, but we want to try to get a nod to get the architect more engaged in actually coming up with the framing plan and starting to work out a lot of the details. The remainder of the building, we would put a couple of windows on this side. This is the west side of the building. A couple of man doors back here. This side would mainly be the corrugated steel. We want to try to shroud the building as much as possible in that area with landscaping. The planting plan is right here.
what is it? What is this zone? Refresh my memory.
Industrial.
Okay.
Originally, we were toying with the building height. What we've just recently come up with is a maximum building height is going to be 30 feet 6 inches at the parapet here. So the reason we have to have the parapet that high is we want to get this, we wanted to hide this standard shed look to maybe give it a little bit better curb appeal. So that's our section revised to the 30-foot 6 dimension. So what we did was we reduced some of the truss here, increased the slope here, so we can fit this roof behind it.
Brian, when you're just, I'm at a little side conversation here, but when you're doing all of this, make sure that you're considering any of the flood mitigation. I mean, you're in a flood zone.
Yep.
So equipment, mechanicals, I think finished floor elevation needs to be freeboard, right?
Yep.
And I think you're at 414. What were you saying the finished floor was?
The finished floor is 413.9. The flood elevation was 413.6. That's why we want to raise the floor up a little bit.
Yeah, I think you just have to coordinate with the architect accordingly.
Yeah.
I think to Nate's point, it's floor elevation, but I think mechanicals are even more critical.
And your mechanicals you were putting above the existing structure, right?
Yes.
So those should be fine.
If you look at this, this is the existing structure. This is the portal over the existing structure that we would put the mechanicals. As this roof slopes down, we would vent everything out of the back, either out through here or up through here. And again, I'm not the architect. I don't want to speak for him, but that's what I would do.
Any questions?
So this is the most up-to-date exterior elevation. This is what we're looking at.
Yes, this is the main facade is right here. That's the front and rear elevation.
So we did talk, as I recall, at least the last meeting that I was at was trying to use and showcase an option to use some of your product on the facade. Is that what that kind of
Correct.
small? Yeah, that is that what I'm looking at kind of in the center? Is that really the extent of it? And
Oh,
what are
no,
the,
the
No,
different
no.
colors.
No.
okay,
Right, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, the different colors indicate how we want to do bands of different material, showcasing that stuff. They've got a lot of colors to pick from. And we're talking to the different manufacturers of the product to see which ones they're willing to give us a good deal on to use on that. But excuse me, that center area right there, we talked about doing something different. Just to identify the entrance of it. And then the rest of it is obviously using that material throughout the front of that building and maybe a little of something else. So
Yeah, so what we're showing in the center is more of a cultured stone look. And the rest of it would be different stone panels. This will all be labeled by the time we get to the planning board, but we're showing a precast base, which gives the building gives it a nice little grounding in the site. So it'll all be Sal's material. He's got access to all sorts of panel systems, and he's actually got some spec'd out that were on a board that we brought last time, but we didn't know this was going to be a Zoom meeting, so we couldn't bring the board with us. So yeah, once we can get a nod to engage the architect to get moving, we'll start labeling all the materials and picking out the materials. I got to get a lighting plan done. We want to put a couple of nice sconces on the front of the building, and then we'll put standard LED wall packs on the sides and the rear of the building. So we'll get a lighting plan done. The other reason we kind of want to nod for the architect is the guy that's doing my lighting is extremely busy, and I want to get it in front of him as soon as possible. So the main thing is really if you guys see any major changes with the site plan, that would preclude us from getting the architect involved, because if the building changes, I don't want to get him started and then have to tell him to stop.
Did I hear anything other than what we discussed?
No, the color as the designation of material is fine, but we want to see the materials and the colors.
Right.
And update that elevation right there to reflect what the material actually is. And then clearly annotated on the elevation as to what each of those materials are.
Yeah. And show the lighting on the exterior.
Correct.
I mean, other things that I think need to be kind of refined quite a bit on the elevation, just simple stuff. You've got window head kind of horizontal datum lines. You've got small slivers of space at doors. Between those spaces, I think there's some alignment, just some general refinement to that elevation that would really help just kind of tighten up the facade and how it's being organized. And even the proportions of the windows on the first level versus the spandrel on the second level, there's just something, there's some inconsistencies in some of the proportions in the layout. So I think as your architect goes through another round to come back to the board, please kind of start to think about that. The other thing too is, I don't know if we talked about this last time, but did we talk about or advise kind of carrying any of the materials around the very blank sides, at least any of the sides that could be visible from the street? So
Yes.
you've got some of the horizontal, the datum lines. Is there any way to kind of carry some of those materials? I understand maybe it's not all of them, but maybe it's some of those materials to kind of, just have this facade that's slapped right on the face and, a different material around the remainder of the building. I think that would really help to tie it together.
Could we carry that material around the 30-foot section of the building, like back to these windows here, and then maybe to here, and because we don't want to use stone panel all the way around the building, because nothing is likely to be built next to or behind the building. And then obviously that's gonna increase the cost if we're putting stone panel all the way around.
No, I sympathize there. But I think I think you can, maybe it's a break in the material itself. Maybe it's a different type of metal cladding panel. Maybe there is another material that kind of wraps around, but you're using that strong horizontal datum you have on the front to
Mhm.
tie it in to the sides.
Okay. So it would wrap like this band around and maybe this
Something,
band.
yeah.
Okay, now just to back up a second, I want to be clear on your organization of the windows, because I haven't done architecture in a long time. You're saying mainly the proportions of these windows compared to this, as well as perhaps the alignment of these windows over these lower spaces, could be a little bit better addressed. Is that what you're saying?
I think that, yes, it would help a lot. I mean, why? I just asked the question. You've got divided lights on the upper windows, what versus just vision on the lower, which I believe the lower panels are actual vision lights or vision windows.
Yes.
They're see-through. Yeah.
Yeah. So is it the mullions and the muttons that are more of the issue, or is it the actual proportion of the window compared to the lowers?
For me, it's both.
Okay. So if we mirrored these windows, very similar windows on the uppers, that would suffice, as well as maybe aligning these windows over the door and maybe different count of these windows over the main entrance.
I think that would go a long way. So
Okay.
if you share that with your architect to kind of think about proportions, about some of the horizontal datum lines, and those alignments, I think he can work with that, or
Okay.
she.
All right, that sounds easy enough. As long as he's not in the framing yet.
Any other issues? So we'll get you on as soon as you get back to us.
Well, I would like to get something into DOT as far as an expedited review. I think a lot's gonna hang on whether or not they change their mind on anything after we submit. Sometimes they tell you one thing in initial review, and then you send it in and they come up with other things. So I'd like to see what DOT has to say. I would like to see if we can revise this a little bit to address those comments. And I guess, when's your next planning board meeting?
It's the second,
The second.
second Thursday, it's the fourth Thursday.
I
September
don't,
28th, so you can do.
I don't know that we're gonna be able to get a perk test.
Yeah, I think that's gonna be a little hurried, but we'll be ready. And as soon as you have, we can do another work session if you want. If you're ready by that Tuesday before, it wouldn't be on the agenda for Thursday, but we could keep this going, or you could send out the things electronically and we can review them that way as well.
Okay. All right.
Then you can provide the information of the update from the DOT.
Okay, yeah, we'll, once we do the expedited review, lately it's been taking these state agencies a long time to turn things around. So, I mean, it took us almost a month and a half just to get a response. So, I mean, they're short-staffed, and I had a conversation with DOT on a different project the other day, and she said, "I'm just warning you, this has got to go through 5 different people." And but we'll push them as hard as we can.
Okay, thank you. To the rest of the board, I just received an email and I sent it out to the consultants and all you folks for, it's from the Little Jaws recommendation. So you can review that and make comments, and we can decide what we want to do. If you can get back to us by tomorrow, just it's a short letter. outlining what their recommendations are. We can decide at that point how we want to proceed.
Okay, any other questions? I appreciate you guys giving us this feedback because, you know, I hate to have Sal engage an architect and then find out something major is going to happen. This way we can get started on the building plans.
No, that was the whole purpose. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you short. I thought we had moved on. No,
I'm sorry.
you're good to go.
You guys
All
go.
right, thank you.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
All right, you too.
So, Peter, the only one thing we have on Thursday is Little Jaws, Holy Cross, and Loud Pack.
Yes, but hold the I just want to. I don't. If this is too short a review for the Little Jaws, but I sent the letter out. If you could get back to us and think that that's going to suffice for this is basically a amended site plan review, and whether that's going to be enough time for them to review it or there. But you have the opportunity to look at it and weigh in, and we can then raise questions Thursday if the timing is appropriate. Anything else?
And Jamie, you gave me directions related to FBA, so we'll start doing our research on those minutes. So we're all set there.
Okay, good, thank
Yeah,
you.
I remember it being 5 to 6 years when the discussion was very specific, and I think you'll see it. I don't know. You say on a site plan. I think it was more as a resolution, to be honest with you.
I
Right,
think it was it was kind of a COVID provision, right? And the construction of the gymnasium.
Well, it
Right,
was,
wasn't
Doug. You know, I was thinking about this last night when I read Sharon's and Terry's comments that I don't know if we gave any special dispensation because of COVID, but I really think we were pretty adamant about running traffic through that neighborhood on a regular basis.
And it definitely was not a long-term approval. It was a
I
very
do
short
think-
duration.
I do think we did something on COVID. I that's what I recall as well. Again. Was a whole
I just don't
different thing.
remember reviewing that letter that they produced.
Hmm.
That doesn't ring any bells with me, but that's just me. Okay, anything else? Jamie?
Yeah,
Go.
actually, I'm sorry, I got something. Jamie, were you able to look at that information on Canalway Commons?
No.
Okay.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
remember it.
So here's
I will look at it.
okay,
Yes.
so
Thank you, Mark.
we did have a meeting, Mark, Terry, and Grazi on a potential third building, which obviously the parking would not work. They only have like 4 spaces, and they have Grazi owns the properties, or he owns 1 and will own 2 across the street. It's within 150 feet. It looks like it's an AT&T building, approximately between 5,000 and 6,000 square feet. And the question is that you can't approve, as I recall, a parcel. It would have to be combined.
If you want to go look at that.
That's a separate parcel just for parking. But he is going to own the building next to it, so he could combine that building with the parcel. Or as the question arose that Mark recalled and Jamie's going to research, they call it a fish hook. Have you heard this before, this expression? Where
Say that again?
a fish hook, where the parcel across the street is actually the same tax parcel.
Oh,
And I suspect it evolved from farm country where they put a road in and they said, well, this is still the same parcel, there's just a road
Right.
through it.
right.
So if that's doable, that answers the question, and it provides the parking that they need to make that third building work.
Okay, I'll look at that. Mark, was that the nature of your question?
Yeah, pretty much. The only other question I had was when we did the resolution, or well, as I looked at the resolution for the approval, it said that the baseline parking was 156 spaces. And that accommodated the uses that were currently proposed, which was the restaurant and the old Pier 1 building.
Mhm.
But if you look at the plans, they provided 154, and they said they needed 150 based on the uses in their parking tabulation. So we just have a little bit of a discrepancy between what's shown on the plans and what's in the resolution. So I guess I just
What was
wanted
our
to-
baseline on the resolution?
we said 156, they're saying 150. So I just want to, it's a 6-spot difference potentially. They provide 154, so maybe it's only 2-spot difference, but regardless,
Hmm.
there's some.
Well, I mean,
there's
we
some
had counted
clarity.
and yeah, I mean, if
There-
the final approved plans is 154, maybe we miscounted. I know we tried to be very specific about the
Yeah,
baseline.
No, we
Yeah,
went
I
back
don't
and
know.
forth that evening. I think it might have had to do with that DOT land in front of Pier 1. Where there were a couple parking spots. I'm just recalling something of that nature.
Their calculation of 150, Jamie, appears to be correct, but again, I so I just, so we don't have any
150,
problem going forward. we gotta-
150 required. So either way, I think it's the 150 are required. Then they're overparked and we're trying, when we set the baseline, we just want to say, hey, that's what's here, just so we understand what's there. But even if it sounds like we got that count wrong, but I think it's not going to matter for your question.
Okay.
Yeah.
If you could let us know so they can get back to work on that if that's a possibility. I think it'll work one way or the other.
Yeah, the problem became if they aren't able to combine it with and make it a single parcel with the Canalway Commons parcel, they've got to combine it with the adjacent parcel that has a building with an undetermined use, and we don't know how many parking spaces are really there. So now we're trying to calculate how many parking spaces they need for that site, and then again have some sort of agreement for the remaining if they're available, if you can get enough parking on that site. And Grazi was starting to talk about parking under the building and that type of stuff. So, it just was spiraling.
It was spiraling, but to the developer's point, if they're gonna do the work for that third parcel, now's the time to do it. And so it's not the cart before the horse. He wants to make sure that this is either doable or not.
Yeah, he wants to stub out utilities and those types of things to this space as part of his development work that's ongoing. And that's why there's a little bit of urgency on their part to get this resolved.
I'll look at that right away. Thanks,
Okay.
Mark.
Yep.
Thank you. Any other questions? Jenny, you're welcome to come. If I'll make sure Leif's here or not, but you're welcome to come either way.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. See you Thursday night.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
So it's like you don't have the whole